When autism got corrupted from the medical to the political, it was now a social cause and a political movement. It became like all of our other major issues that we have been facing recently in America. It became a tool that was wielded like all other Marxist interpretations of civil rights. And so when you look at the people who inspired Judy Singer, for example, Herbert Marcuse, who founded the Frankfurt School, Marxist influences all over. Feminism research pioneered her entire thing. It was all ridiculous. But that was eventually how Judy Singer got her research out and how she was able to basically corrupt this whole institution. But the thing that was really interesting about the autism narrative that got corrupted was that it came second to all of the other Marxist interpretations of civil rights movements were. And that was the woke movement. So this is where things get really interesting and why now disabilities are kind of worming their way in behind the remaining factions of the woke movement. So the rise of social justice is really a blueprint as to how transableism is getting spread throughout our culture. So the woke movement, the social justice warrior movement, was the most aggressive outgrowth of expressive individualism. So the woke movement was expressive individualism on steroids. This is the actionable component. This is militant uprisings, massive social upheaval, crazy, wild stuff happening all over the place. It was everywhere, all the time, all at once, everything like that. So the most aggressive outgrowth of expressive individualism was the woke movement, as I said, which was enabled by the rise of expressive individualism and the capture of our institutions. There is no way that BLM and the trans madness and everything like that could have happened without expressive individualism and our institutional capture, like the autism industrial complex and other institutions, playing a key role into making that so. So when everyone decided to play everyone against each other, the result was what people now call the culture war, which is now what we're watched unfold right in front of our faces for about the past decade. Now it's on the decline, at least I hope it is, but this was the period of madness. Michael Schellenberger was on Jordan Peterson's podcast a couple weeks ago, and he called it, I think rightly, the woke reign of terror. When we look back upon it, like, this was a traumatizing decade and a half-ish for our country. It was an absolutely traumatizing decade and a half for our country. So to give some examples of really how this all played out and manifested, this kind of, I made a video about the intellectual dark web a couple weeks ago. And so a lot of the people tied to the intellectual dark web were a direct reaction to the rise of wokeism. And so, for example, Evergreen College, with Brett Weinstein and Heather Heying being hunted down by their radicalized students because they wouldn't stay home on a radical social justice holiday. Ben Shapiro getting firebombed at Berkeley and hundreds of people shouting that they wanted to kill Ben Shapiro. Sam Harris going on Bill Maher's show and talking about, arguing, quote unquote, with Ben Affleck about how, we need to watch out for radical Islam. The rise of the IDW, like I said, Jordan Peterson fighting that gender bill in Canada, Bill 16, which would have mandated gender pronouns, all that sort of thing. So the reason why all of these people, Joe Rogan, Barry Weiss, talk about any of these people, the reason why they became popular, the reason why they became a big deal is because they recognized this. They didn't know what to call it, so they called it the culture war, quote unquote. And they tried to fight it without knowing what it really was. Which is also why the IDW, the intellectual dark web, has now fallen apart, because there was nothing really of definitional value that held all of these people together. So they ultimately ended up infighting and getting into beefs with one another and all this type of petty stuff that's ridiculous, to be honest. But that's how this stuff goes. And so that is why this all really kind of folded, blew up, and then fell apart, because they didn't know really what the culture war was at the end of the day, which is really interesting when you look at it. And the damage that the woke movement has done to our country is it's unfathomable how destructive this is, which is exactly what Robert Bellah predicted when he wrote Habits of the Heart. He said this is going to destroy everything. This is going to rip apart our cultures, destabilize our communities, turn people against each other. There's going to be violence. There's going to be outbreaks, riots. Everything that Robert Bellah said came true. And it was all because of Carl Trueman's thesis that it was an identity problem. Oh, you're attacking me because, quote unquote, because I'm black, or because I'm trans, or because I'm a woman, or because I'm whatever. That is the core of my identity, and I need to I need to lash out against you to protect myself. And this is a lie, obviously. It's a lie. But when people are so poisoned by that ideology, If you are a top performing, high earning man in a corporate job, I have a free gift for you, the Value Economist Handbook. In this book, you will find a bulletproof, crystal clear, and step-by-step roadmap to build your values, systematize them into an unbeatable portfolio, and leverage them to create an unshakable identity that leads to fulfillment, meaning, and purpose. So, if you want a free copy, go down to the description below, fill out your information, and we'll send one over to you right away. Now, let's get back to today's video. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? You can't do anything. Identity became the center of everything, and it destroyed anything resembling nuance and led to the rise of the woke movement, like I said. And I think the most fervent use of this, I talk a lot about this inside of Spectrum of Lies, the most fervent example of this was transgenderism, which is so offensive to the very core of who we are as people. Because if we can't even decipher what the difference is between a man and a woman, we don't have a chance at all of advancing as a society and, doing human flourishing in the right way. We just don't. We just absolutely don't. It is unspeakable, the tragedy that has happened as a result of transgenderism. Like with the detransitioner movement, with the butchery of so many of our children, with the tearing apart of our families, with the government mandating, speech laws across the West, but in America too. Like this has been so. It is the potential, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like I was talking to my dad actually about this weekend. Like we're gonna look back at lobotomies and say, oh, that's light work. I'm being dead serious. And the lobotomy epidemic is awful. It was tragic that we did that to people. But cutting up people, perfectly healthy people, chopping off body parts of children because we don't want to, quote unquote, unaffirm their identity or dead name them, quote unquote, insanity. Absolute insanity. And now we are seeing, thankfully, a major backlash. And I talk about some of these heroes in this book. Abigail Shrier, Deborah Soh, Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson, all these people that are standing up and being, warriors on this issue. It's amazing. And it's been awesome to see. But it's been destructive. And that's why social justice has been so bad for America in more ways than we could possibly count. And I'm so glad that it's almost over.